Business is President Trump's specialty. After all, that's what he's famous for. And during his presidential campaigns, he's lauded his own business experience and expertise. Now, in his second term, Trump is taking an axe to federal regulations when it comes to business crime and corruption. The administration claims that these regulations are getting in the way of American businesses competing in the global market. But many economists disagree. Welcome to the politics of New America. On the show today, Trump cuts corruption rules, but what effects will it actually have on American business? I'm Nathan Stone, and with me is producer Josh Carmody.
You know, as a fan of the movie Wall Street, I'm ecstatic. But as a human being who has to live on this planet, I'm fucking terrified.
Yeah, this is a pair of executive orders today that we're going to be talking about that I've wanted to kind of tackle for a while, and this seemed about as good a time as any for it to come up. So what's interesting about these is they're both around business, corruption, and crime. And in both cases, Trump is ordering various federal agencies to either change rules or just cease prosecuting these crimes altogether. And historically, America has actually been a world leader in fighting business corruption. They wrote a lot of the rules that other countries and economic organizations like the OECD follow to this day. And this is a full-on U-turn from the American government, courtesy of the Trump administration. So
A businessman president.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll run the country like a business, they said. It will be fantastic, they said.
They should have asked more questions about the type of business, I think. But yeah, let's jump into this. So the first one we're going to hit on, Josh, is from all the way back in February. Now, those halcyon days are far behind us.
Oh, you mean 12 years ago?
But yeah, this one is Pausing Foreign Corrupt Practices Act enforcement to further American economic and national security.
What?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Some of these are real mouthfuls. This Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is actually a really important piece of legislation that has not just domestic implications, but worldwide implications as well. So, very simply, it's a federal law that prohibits U.S. citizens and entities from bribing foreign government officials to benefit their business interests.
And this has been repealed.
This has been paused, yeah.
Okay.
So, the department...
Cool.
So, yeah, so the FCPA has been in effect since 1977, and it's applicable worldwide and extends specifically to publicly traded companies, so all of the largest corporations in the world.
So so you said this is an American designed policy, and it's applicable worldwide. Now, do you mean just to countries or businesses in countries trying to work in America, or other countries can apply this policy as well, like effectively?
Almost yes to both, but specifically, it affects any country that does business in the United States. So this act they can be charged, if a company is investigated under this act, they can be charged for bribery that went on anywhere in the world. Okay. But because they do business in America, they have American operations, the American government will go after them.
Okay.
That's how that works. So
I get it.
Yeah, even so if they went to usually what would happen is someone would take a suitcase full of $100 bills on a business trip to a developing nation somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that things went their way. And for a long time, this was just kind of how business was done between kind of developed businesses in developed nations and those in developing nations, specifically government agencies. To give you a little bit of history on it, so in the mid-70s, there was a lot of scandals involving bribery of foreign officials by prominent American companies.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. You might have heard of such companies as Lockheed, Mobil, Northrop, Gulf Oil. And so these made headlines in the United States and throughout the world. And the SEC ended up doing these very high-profile public hearings to figure out what should be done about this. Through that investigation, they found out that over 400 American companies made questionable or illegal payments to the tune of around $300 million to foreign government officials. And
in the 70s.
This is in the 70s, yeah.
1970s money.
That's a lot of money, yeah. So the idea and the testimony of the business leaders was basically very matter-of-factly, well, this is how business is done. What do you expect us to do? We have to compete. The Europeans are bribing them. The Canadians are bribing them. Everyone's bribing everybody.
Those filthy
Canadians. And so it was seen as greasing the wheels, right? It was how you made things move smoothly, was just give people money. And add to that, at the same time, in the 70s, you had one of the largest presidential scandals of all time, Watergate. Investigations into everything that went on around Watergate also revealed that there were slush funds that were used for spying on the Democrats were also used for bribing foreign officials. So even the government was doing it. The SEC is there pulling their hair out, being like, guys, why? Stop, please.
Can't you just lose a check at the CIA headquarters?
Yeah.
God, what's happening?
So in response to this kind of shock of reality crashing down on regulators, Congress enacted the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act to bring a halt to bribery of foreign officials, and also to help the public have any confidence that the entire political and business system in the United States was not just one big corrupt party, which it clearly was. So after all of that, 1977, December 19th, we get FCPA, and it goes into force. And one of the things the American government did was they went abroad and they took these ideas to the OECD. And what you need to remember kind of about the 70s is the nations that were major trading nations back then, it was a much smaller block of countries, right? It was the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, right? It was basically the West TM that were doing a lot of the trading and thus doing the bribing. They went to these organizations, they went to the other countries and said, hey guys, we need to all agree to stop this. We can actually make more money. It'll be more profitable for your businesses if you don't have to pay out all these bribes. If we all kind of enforce this, then we can stamp out this kind of corruption. It'll be good for everyone. It'll lead to a more fairer, more competitive marketplace, something that we all want to strive for. And they were quite successful in this, actually. Most of the countries in Europe and all the developed countries kind of signed on to it, or at least went along with it. And you started to see economic organizations also kind of write these rules in. So the American way kind of became the dominant global way of fighting corruption. And for the most part, it's not to say, of course, that there's all sorts of bribing and things that still goes on, but it had a major effect to the point where it's no longer the way you do business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So coming back to February 10th of this year, we have
12 years ago.
12 years ago, we have President Trump's executive order. Now, what he has done here is he has ordered a stop in enforcement of any of these laws, any of these regulations, and actually stopped ongoing cases, just threw them out. Any ongoing investigations are shut down, and they actually let some people go. They actually fired some people that were investigating. It's a 180-day review technically, so it's not. This isn't necessarily a permanent thing, but it's clear from the wording of Trump's executive order that he is not a fan of this. So it's very much the type of thing that could get extended in a subsequent executive order. And that's a thing that Trump and other presidents do quite often, is they'll write one EO, it'll last for 180 days or 120 days, whatever. And then they'll slip in another EO when that expires and be like, actually, we're going to do another 120 days, another 180 days.
They call that a daisy chain in my business.
So in section 1 of the executive order, we get Trump's reasoning here. He says the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act has been systemically and to a steadily increasing degree stretched beyond proper bounds and abused in a manner that harms the interests of the United States. Current FCPA enforcement impedes the United States' foreign policy objectives and therefore implicates the President's Article 2 authority over foreign affairs. And he says the President's authority is inextricably linked with global economic competitiveness of American companies. So that's key. And American national security depends in substantial part on the United States and its companies gaining strategic business advantages, whether in critical minerals, deep water ports, or other key infrastructure or assets. That last sentence pretty much gives the game away. America is short, as Trump feels, on some or many strategic assets. We've heard so much about critical minerals, rare earths. They're not actually rare. We just call them that. They're found all over the place. But the United States has a voracious...
It's up there with other things like superfood.
Yeah. The United States has a voracious appetite for them, both in consumer, but where Trump is concerned, military applications. And the United States' main adversary at this point in time, which is China, just so happens to have the vast majority of rare earths and the capability to actually process those rare earths, which is the capability to do that is in fact a little bit rare. So a lot of this can be seen as, I don't want to call it a panic response, but it's a deeper concern about American national security and the fact that it seems that Trump doesn't think that American companies can compete, which is maybe a more damning thing to find out here. Because if he thinks that the problem is they can't bribe officials in other countries to give them access to ports, to give them access to rare earths, then yeah, that's because maybe American companies aren't the most efficient anymore. Maybe they're not the leaders in those industries anymore, and maybe it's starting to show.
Yeah, looking at Trump, it reminds me of people who, when they're learning how to drive, they drive with someone who's been driving for like 30 years and they pick up all of their bad habits. Like Trump is showing a whole bunch of people how to run the government, but with his bad habits, and they don't work because they're all about bribing people and being corrupt.
Well, that's a perfect point, Josh. And because all of these actions, of course, have rippling repercussions for not just the United States, but for the whole world.
Yeah.
And Trump abandoning these principles, and again, America has been the overall global leader in fighting this type of corruption since the 70s. It's likely going to hurt U.S. companies and make them less competitive than some of their international counterparts, or at least that's what the kind of mainstream economic thinking around this executive order is.
And is there not like a lot of kind of talk and thought around what Trump does that is to confuse and eventually tank the economy because there are ways that he makes out like a bandit? As much as there is stuff that is unintentionally stupid and bad, isn't there like about 50% stuff that is intentionally stupid and bad?
I mean, and it's hard to figure out what things they're doing out of personal gain and the things that they're doing out of almost ideological belief. Mm-hmm. And then there's the things that Trump does because he is spiteful about certain things. And I think some of these regulatory cuts and slashing that he's been doing lately might just come from his history as a businessman. He's been involved in over 4,000 lawsuits, umpteen criminal cases. He's seen the inside of courtrooms a lot, and he's a product of kind of this late 70s, 80s, early 90s.
He's a product of a gay psychopath, is what he is. So, like, if we're gonna get down to brass tacks,
like there's a certain almost Reaganomics taken and turned up to 11 right here. Small government. What about we raise you no government? And that's kind of what we're seeing here. But it doesn't seem like cutting or pausing the FCPA is going to help American firms in any way. And there's a few reasons. And firstly, probably most importantly, is that corruption is still a crime outside of the FCPA, right? So the FCPA has a long reach, but American companies can still run afoul of the same charges outside of that. Right? Bribery is still illegal. The underlying crime, it can still get you prosecuted from state attorney generals, foreign regulators, because when America designed this, they were the forefront, they were the leaders. But now everybody does it, right? So just because the United States is no longer prosecuting this doesn't mean that the UK or France or Germany or Canada, maybe not the Canadians, of course, but one of the other countries that you operate in as a large multinational might pick up the slack and you're in the same amount of trouble, just in a different court speaking a different language. Mm-hmm. The other thing about it, too, is where it's a pause instead of an elimination, is that companies can't bank on this remaining in effect, this pause. So even if you wanted to, even if you were, just you had already packed up your suitcases stuffed full of bills, and you're just waiting, pressing F5, waiting for this executive order to go through, because you're flying off to some far-flung locale, and you're gonna bribe your way into rare earth mineral heaven. You could be prosecuted for that as soon as the stay is lifted, or if the next, say the Republicans lose the next election and the Democrats reinstate this, you could be prosecuted then. So it's hard to know what he thinks the benefit of this is going to be for American companies, because
my assumption is, how much money are you going to give me in order to win the primary?
Well, and that might be a factor because of Trump's very transactional nature. I think there's something about this, the FCPA, that might offend him in some way, in his sensibilities, that a bribe is just doing business. I really think he might think that that's perfectly fine and okay, and he legitimately does not understand why anyone's making a big deal about this.
Yeah, because he has dementia.
So what we're left with is a very odd situation where economic experts are saying that the administration has it wrong when it comes to who benefits from this pause. They're saying that American companies really won't benefit at all. The beneficiaries are probably the corrupt foreign officials who would like some bribes, but then also foreign companies from countries that don't have these rules, right? Because if the biggest policeman, the United States, of these rules is gone,
Okay, I'm glad you clarified, because I was like, "What are they, like 6'7"? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean, biggest policeman?
Yeah,
I've seen some big policemen. I don't know.
if they're gone and you're a company that say you do business in your own developing nation, you do a little bit of business in the United States, then you're far more likely to be like, oh, okay, well then, hey, we'll throw some money here, and that actually makes it harder for American companies to compete, because as we've said, American companies can't ignore this rule even if they wanted to, because they're likely to get prosecuted by the EU or someone else.
Yeah.
And or by, states or other actors that still consider this a crime. So it's really quite odd. And most of the companies that have been charged under the FCPA are foreign companies. They're not American companies. So there's no real argument for U.S. competitiveness in this. And it's the kind of thing where I think we can speculate on why Trump might have done this, but it's actually kind of part of a larger theme that we're seeing develop, because there was a very recent EO that dropped it's very similar in certain ways to this. So this May, on the 9th, we got a second executive order, and this one, as you'll see, ties in broadly with our last one. It's called Fighting Overcriminalization in Federal Regulations. And it is also a mouthful. And this one is quite interesting. It has to do with regulatory crime. And I know that doesn't sound exciting. And
hey, they made a whole show called White Collar. I think we can get into it.
Okay, excellent. So for anyone out there that's like,
it wasn't about regulatory crime, just
darn.
to spoil it.
You had me going. I was like, Josh is going to be an expert here. You watched the whole show. He's going to start quoting, various U.S. code.
Oh, yeah, Matt Bomer. Yeah, I'm just did some hot Matt Bomer quotes.
Yeah. So for anyone not into, United States regulatory laws, crimes around regulatory laws, called regulatory crimes, they're violations of rules that were established by government agencies that oversee various sectors. So things including trade, finance, occupational safety, environmental protection, those kind of things. And offenses include things like bid rigging, price fixing, those kind of things. And usually they're pursued by the Federal Trade Commission or the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission. And unlike traditional criminal cases, regulatory crimes, they have a different rule set. And generally it allows for easier prosecution without the need to prove intent or to provide overwhelming evidence of guilt. And the reason for this is that enforcement around regulations emphasizes compliance and cooperation. And where it's easier for organizations and companies to be found guilty of breaching these, they often receive less punitive measures because of that. So big one, of course, is fines, cease and desist orders, right? Just stopping whatever activity it is. So it's a bit of a give and a take. it's easier to convict, but the sentences are generally lighter than in other criminal courts.
And aren't fines always like kind of they have some sort of like cap on them, so like it's never like more than like a little flu shot for them kind of thing.
Yeah, it depends on the industry and how well lobbied that industry is, but you're 100% correct. Yeah. Often the fines you're just like, but didn't they make so much more? Like, at some point the fine just becomes the cost of doing business in some sense, right? So
It's not a law. It's just how much it costs to get away with it.
yeah, and our dear leader has an issue with the state of regulatory laws in America. And
Kim Jong Un. I just wanted to be clear.
Well, I mean, he's got that sweet tourist spot that's going to be opening up.
Oh, I saw that. I am so excited for that. I can't wait for the flurry of influencers who get arrested there. That 6 years from now, gonna be a hit. Gonna be a hit with TikTok.
I'm going to start you off with the section 1 of this EO, which is, of course, always our purpose. You always got to hit them with the pitch first. And so this is what Trump has to say on regulatory laws. The United States is drastically overregulated. The Code of Federal Regulations contains over 48,000 sections, stretching over 175,000 pages, far more than any citizen can possibly read, let alone fully understand. Worse, many carry potential criminal penalties for violations. This situation has become so dire that no one, likely including those charged with enforcing our criminal laws at the Department of Justice, knows how many separate criminal offenses are contained in the Code of Federal Regulations, with at least one source estimating hundreds of thousands of such crimes. Many of these regulatory crimes are strict liability offenses, meaning that citizens need not have a guilty mental state to be convicted of a crime. Now, that's our preamble. This is the dunk. I want just think about.
So we're not even on chapter 1.
Yeah,
oh God, this is the foreword. Yeah. Oh no,
this sentence is maybe one of the best things I've read in an executive order, just in the context of this presidency. So, this status quo is absurd and unjust. It allows the executive branch to write the law in addition to executing it. That situation can lend itself to abuse and weaponization by providing government officials tools to target unwitting individuals. Dear God, this is If I Did It. This is that whole book. It's OJ all over again. How in the world do you write something like that with a straight face? You can't. He must have been giggling. He must have been giggling the whole time.
I love that you suppose he wrote it at all.
He didn't write it at all.
No, some other like true psychopath who like goes to sleep with a copy of Project 2025 in between their pillows.
Yeah,
just like yes, yeah. They've bought a jar of liberal tears off the dark web. I get a little taste of that before I go to bed.
There's telling on yourself, and then there's those two sentences, and I cannot get over that this is something that this government pumped out. Wow, yeah. So, and I'm sorry, this is getting a little off topic, but my God, that is a sentence. But he goes on for some time, but basically, he's saying that the purpose of this order is to ease the regulatory burden on everyday Americans and ensure no American is transformed into a criminal for violating a regulation they have no reason to know exists. So, already there's some issue here with these. Because regulatory rules are about compliance and cooperation, they are designed in such a way to smack your hand if you put your hand in the cookie jar, no matter whether or not you're trying to grab a cookie from the cookie jar. And that's important because sometimes just saying this action is forbidden under all circumstances is the way that these regulations have to work, because the actions in themselves are so risky that your intent honestly doesn't matter. And in a lot of ways, there's some really kind of good examples of why this is the case. So further on in the executive order, it actually gives us an example case that uses as a way to make this argument. But really, this executive order revolves around something called mens rea. And if your Latin is like my Latin, non-existent, it means the state of mind. And the idea is there criminal intent with these laws? And most of these regulatory laws don't require that criminal intent. What he is looking to do with this executive order is to add that requirement, and also to minimize the prosecution of any remaining strict liability offenses. So strict liability means it doesn't matter what you intended to do. If you broke this law, we're going to punish you for it. So the example that he gives is the United States versus Gypsum Company from 1978. Spending a lot of time in the 70s. But the crux
back when it was good.
Yeah.
Back when life was grand, right? In the 70s.
70s.
When things were brown and people had bell bottoms.
So in that case, several major gypsum board manufacturers and their executives were accused of illegally fixing prices in violation of the Sherman Act, which is a law against anti-competitive business practices. A key part of the case involved something called interseller price verification, where competitors called each other to check the prices that they were offering to specific customers. The defendants argued that they did this to comply with another law, the Robinson-Patman Act, which allows businesses to match competitors' prices in good faith to stay competitive. So in this case that they're quoting here, the law that was being violated was this, them calling each other up, basically. They were accused of price fixing, but the regulatory thing that they broke was kind of having these secret little conversations amongst themselves. And this went back and forth and all the way up to the Supreme Court. And eventually the Supreme Court ruled that in this case, intent mattered. And this is what the administration is begging. They're saying, look, the Supreme Court thinks that, intent matters in these cases, so we want to add it to basically all of these regulatory crimes. The Supreme Court also found that price verification isn't automatically legal. So they were saying that in this case, we're finding for the defendants, and that it's not, they're not going to be prosecuted. However, the government was right to bring these charges and to investigate them. So that part is left out, I think, of Trump's point here. But the executive order also states that enforcement and investigating companies for these strict liability offenses is disfavored. And they quote themselves on that several times. It is disfavored.
Yeah. So if you will see in my references here, I said...
Yeah. And so what that means, basically, is that if they are disfavoring something, it means that when it comes to the Department of Justice and you're a prosecutor and you're bringing this and you're like, hey, I got this case, they're going to look at you and be like, oh, buddy, I don't think we're going to be taking this one on, right? That's what that means. It's the federal government does not want you to prosecute these things, so you're probably not going to prosecute these things, which is, again, like the FCAP. It's a breakdown in the regulatory laws that are there to protect consumers and to protect basically the integrity of open markets and competitiveness and all the things that
Republicans love.
Yeah, exactly.
Open free markets.
Free markets, baby. So what's wild about this as well is that it's going to affect things that kind of really matter, health and safety wise, but not affect much else, it seems. And this is coming from law firms that have examined basically the order and kind of looked at its impact on enforcement. One of the places where it's going to have the greatest effect is the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And this is the kind of thing that protects consumers from misbranded food, any kind of altered or impure substances in drugs, in food, or in cosmetics.
Which, at face value, seems like something RFK Jr. is very against.
Yeah. So in before this came into force, this EO, corporations and individuals could be held criminally liable for violations of this. And again, this is stuff that you put in yourself or on yourself, and it's really important. So now, if cases like this come up, instead of just saying, "Oh no, you put something awful in this," it doesn't matter whether you intended to or not. You're getting fined. You're getting, we're making you cease production of this product. They will have to, prosecutors would have to prove that they criminally intended to do this, right? They were twirling their snidely whiplash mustaches while they, poured asbestos into your Tylenol bottle. I don't know. But it makes it so much harder to actually go after companies for their mistakes.
Which is insane. The companies love the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Like, that's a crazy thing. No, don't let them have that power. That's crazy. No, I'm upset.
I mean, you should be. And it's the type of thing that can really affect health and wellness in the United States. But
I mean, all the regulations that you talked about so far, and every regulation is written in blood, and they're so quick to do away with them. For what?
Yeah. And looking at kind of other federal departments and agencies, most of them already have these kind of criminal intent requirements. It's just in those situations where the government in the past has been saying, whoa, I don't care why you were doing it. You're not gonna be doing it. And if we catch you doing it, you're gonna face consequences. It's those situations where before it was black and white. It was just, hey, this is food. This is cosmetics. This is things that we really don't want to have adverse effects on human beings. Now it's those very important but very limited scope laws that are being affected by this, and it's going to be a lot harder in the future to prosecute companies when they do stuff that is going to affect the health of people.
And if there's anything America needs, it's corporations that are harder to prosecute. Just mini countries that have a army of lawyers with a never-ending slush fund.
Yeah. And hey, you really start packing those briefcases now, though. Just and it's. I'm thinking about doing you and me do a Politics of New America slush fund. It'll be great. We'll. Oh
yeah, definitely.
We'll have to find some foreign officials. I don't know if you know any, but I don't.
I mean, we might. I feel like we have connections.
Yeah,
I feel connected. Don't you feel connected?
Man, I cold call people all the time. I'm a reporter. That's what I do. Yeah, I'll just call up some embassy.
Yeah, no, I'll see what's going on over at Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, they must have international connections. Yeah. They've filmed around the world.
Yeah, you start handing out some envelopes of cash, see if we can boost our ratings a little bit, and it'll be great. Top of the charts before too long. But yeah, those are the two things that I wanted to bring up today. These are executive orders that I think have kind of slipped the radar of a lot of people. And with all the craziness that's gone on in the past 6 months or so, 12 years, I guess, maybe even, it's easy to miss these things, but they are really important. They are going to affect you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, corporations, the amount of money, especially in the States, that they're allowed to donate to political candidates shows how much influence they have over elections.
Mm-hmm.
You're sticking your head in the sand if you think that they don't, and it's both sides of the aisle. It's why none of these kind of young Democrats can really climb the ladder.
Absolutely. And again, we're so far from the end of the Trump presidency that I like to...
Yeah, about, 47 years from it?
I like to pick up on these trends and kind of talk about them because we could see far more of this, right? We've got 3.5 years to go, and we've already seen these kind of attacks on the regulatory structure. We've seen Doge's cuts to the federal government. In 4 years, we might be looking at a totally different federal structure around businesses and what they can and can't do than we started going into it. So certainly things to keep an eye on, as always.
Yeah.
We're always so upbeat.
I know. We try.
All right, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week for more fun, optimistic commentary on the American political system. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice, and tell all your friends. The Politics of New America is hosted by Nathan Stone and produced by Josh Carmody. You can follow us on Blue Sky at Politics New America.
This has been a Haunted Mouse production. Cut that out.